Welcome to this podcast. It's making me thirsty, the number one destination for Seinfeld fans. This episode 101. Today's guest is a veteran film, television, and voice actor. You know him from Melrose Place, The PJs, Smallville, Doom Patrol, and of course, he played Kramer's lawyer, Jackie Chiles, in several Seinfeld episodes, including The Caddy, The Maestro, and the finale. Please welcome Phil Morris. Phil, thanks for joining.
It is my honor. I love talking Seinfeld.
Listen, it wouldn't be a Seinfeld podcast without talking to the one and only Jackie Chiles. So,
brother, thanks.
So, Phil, take us back. I mean, man, you were acting since you were pretty much in diapers. So let's fast forward a little bit to 1995, right? Obviously, The Maestro was the first episode you appeared in. Tell us a little bit about the audition process. Like, did your agent tell you about this? Tell us a little bit how the role came about.
Yeah, specifically the role of Jackie Chiles was in a breakdown, and they wanted an actor who could approximate Johnny Cochran. I mean, it was literally in the breakdown. And Johnny Cochran was a very famous Los Angeles-based lawyer at the time. He moved to New York. He represented Michael Jackson, OJ. At the time, the OJ trial was running hot and heavy all over the place. So it was really smart of the Seinfeld people to come up with an approximation of that character. And so that's how Jackie came to be. I was on their radar prior, though. I had actually booked an episode of a show where they were dependent upon the New York City election, and either Mayor Dinkins was going to win or Giuliani was going to win. And I was going to play the press secretary of Dinkins, and they had another actor playing the press secretary of Giuliani. And so Larry directed me in this scene that never made it because Dinkins didn't win. Right. Giuliani won. So I did this whole thing with Larry in front of a camera. So he and I knew each other from that. So when I came into audition, I mean, and there were people like Michael Dorn, who played Worf on Star Trek, Ted Lange, who played Isaac on The Love Boat. He auditioned for it. Michael Boatman, who was in with a show with Michael J. Fox about the DC politics. That guy was in Spin City. So there was no guarantee I had this role. I mean, I had to audition for this character. I said like 3 words. And the casting director goes, okay, yeah, let's go. So we went over to Jerry's office across the way, and it was hot. It was like 100 degrees in the valley, and we were all wearing black suits. I mean, we looked like the Motown Mafia walking over to Jerry's office, and Jerry's brand new Porsche was parked right in front of a fire hydrant. And we walked up, and they called my name. I went in and I did like 2 lines, and Jerry went, hold on. I was like, hold on. He's like, yeah. He went over to the thermostat, turned the air conditioning up. He goes, man, you're so funny. You're making me sweat. So keep going. I was like, all right. So I kept going, and I got in my car. It was a Saturday, remember? I got in my car, and like 20 minutes later, they called me and said I had the job.
Incredible.
That's how it was. It was great.
And that was written, your first episode was written by Larry David. So, I guess, so you already knew it was kind of based on Cochran. But the Maestro didn't sort of, I mean, the Caddy, your second episode, really, obviously basically was a parody of the OJ trial with the bra not fitting and everything like that. Right. But the Maestro, it was obvious there was a Cochran connection, but it wasn't as blatant as the second episode, which I found interesting. But the Larry David written episode of the Maestro. So he already had you in the non-fat yogurt. But what can you tell us about working that first kind of scenes, on set with Michael Richards, and kind of who was kind of leading you there? Was it Larry David? Was it more Andy Ackerman? What was that sort of like?
Well, the character I brought in certainly was not Johnny Cochran. He was an amalgam of a lot of people that I knew, my father being one of them, a bunch of street corner preachers, hustlers, pimps, you know what I mean? Jackie was about it, you know what I mean? So I wanted to give him more, if it was possible, color than even Johnny Cochran. And so that's what I was working on. And remember, when you do a show in 5 days, so you have 5 days to figure all this out. So we did the table read, which was great. And then we go to rehearsal. Andy Ackerman was the director. Jerry was just sitting off. He wasn't obviously directing. He wasn't even in the scene. And I'm doing my thing. And he goes, hold up. What are you doing? What are you doing? I was like, well, I got 5 days, man. I want to try different stuff and see if I can zero it in. Nope. I want you to do exactly what you did in my office. I want you to hone this character to the place that you were in my office. Can you do that? I was like, can I go home now? Because I do that in my sleep, man. Yeah, I can do that. So he goes, that's what I want. I just want what you did in my office. That's what I want. I was like, right on, let's do that. So from then on, I mean, I was kind of Teflon. They didn't really tell me anything. I had worked with Michael Richards before on a show called Marblehead Manor. So I knew Michael very well. We had worked real hard in the trenches on another sitcom together. So I knew he was a comic genius, you know, a bit of a loose cannon, completely outside the box. And so, but I wasn't intimidated by him because I'd worked with him for so long, you know, and I wasn't that I wasn't a fan of Seinfeld. It's just that it wasn't a show that I watched. So it didn't matter to me that they were on Rolling Stone. It didn't matter to me that they were in Time magazine. I was another actor going to work. And I really thought that was good, because if you go to a show that you're a fan of, it can tend to come out in your performance. You know what I'm saying? Like you're acquiescing to them, you're allowing them to kind of carry the day because they're the stars of this incredibly unique and popular show. Jackie don't care about that. Jackie don't care about. Man. Jackie shows up, he's a star anywhere he goes.
Well, that just shows you're a pro's pro. I mean, we've talked to a lot of guests from, you know, people that have tried out or, you know, auditioned in season 1 or 2 versus 7 and 8 like you. Mm-hmm. And again, 7 and 8, they orientation factor because, you know, 30 million people are watching every week, et cetera. But back to the chemistry between you and Michael, I can't get the scene out of my head when you two walk in that door together and you bump each other, and it's just it's.
So you want to know the story about that? Want to know about the bump? Because there's a story about that.
Yeah.
So we've done. Okay, now remember, we do the whole week rehearsal, whole week, everything going cockroach, bop, 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 bop. No improv. We didn't improvise not one line, not one. All scripted, all week. Tape day. Larry goes, give him a mustache and glasses. I hadn't had a mustache and glasses the whole week.
Oh wow!
The whole week. Hits with the mustache and glasses. Boom, we put it on. It's freaking magic. We do the scene. It kills. Right, the audience. This is when the audience was still in the audience, and you know, live audience kills. The first take kills. So we go back to setup, and Michael goes, "Hey Phil, wait, let's get stuck in the door. Let's just get stuck in the door." And I'm like, Mike, that's so hack, bro. That's so hack, bro. That's so cheesy. What are we, vaudevillians? He goes, I'm telling you, just do it. Just do it. He goes, I said, you're going to tell him? He goes, no, we're just going to do it. Just going to do it. So that's what you saw. You saw us get caught in the door and get spit out. And then you see the unique character reactions that each one of us had. And that's what Michael was going for. And that's why I say, this dude's a comic genius, man. He came up with subtle moments. Every entrance he had, he rehearsed. Every time he bumped into the door, that was a week of rehearsal. Right. That wasn't improv. That wasn't spontaneous. You know, so, you know, this show is really special. And again, working with Michael before really helped us work on that show.
Thank you for the mustache. We were going to ask you about the mustache, if it was a real mustache or a fake mustache. We were trying to figure that out.
Fake. Carcho says fake is funnier.
Right. Well, it's perfect. You know, the other thing that the character had was the 3 words together all the time. It seemed to be sort of you had different writers for every episode you were on. Well, I guess Larry David wrote the finale and the maestro, but Kevin and Robin wrote the caddy, and Steve Curran wrote the abstinence. But they seem to like to put the 3 words together for you. Now you said there wasn't a lot of improv, so I'm guessing all the times those 3-word phrases were always written as were, and you just kind of nailed them. They kind of just knew that this guy's going to say these words funny.
Yeah, when you embody a character like Jackie, and you inhabit a character, which is very I don't say rare, but it is wonderful for an actor when that happens. The words, I don't want to say that the words don't matter. They're inconsequential because Jackie's rhythm and his patter is uniquely his own. So you could give him so many things that I would make into Jackie, So to give me the 3-word, whether they're rhyming or they were just standalone, was just another great rhythm for a character like Jackie Chiles. And to much to their credit, they saw that. And when I would nail it, or when I nailed it the first time in the coffee episode, then they just, that's a great character hook for this guy. So we went with it.
So I do want to get back to Jackie, but you brought up when you were Dinkins's staff member, and now that seems to be Larry liked you in that, and then Jerry kind of stepped in and and kind of picked you for this. So it's just interesting, that dynamic there. But I'm just curious, was it the same type of character or completely different?
Completely different. I mean, a much more pulled together, very erudite press secretary, which is what the mayor of New York would need, not a fop, not a fool, not a clown at all. It was, from what I remember, fairly straightforward. It wasn't comedic necessarily at all.
So I've heard, some of your training of doing Jackie Chiles is you used to bump into Johnny Cochran actually at a barbershop.
Yeah, we went to the same barbershop.
That's unbelievable. So you shed a little light on that. Like, did you get to know him, or kind of you just picked up on his mannerisms?
Well, I mean, I don't know if you guys went to barbershops with your dad as a kid, but there's so many characters that are there. And Johnny was one of them. Johnny Cochran was one of them. Willie Knowles, who was a great basketball player and legend, was one of them. Elgin Baylor was one of them. I mean, there were a lot of illustrious celebrities that would come into Terrell's barbershop, which is the name of the barbershop. And Johnny was a broke-ass DA at the time. And he was driving a black, what was he driving? A black Seville, Cadillac Seville. I'll never forget it. And he would come in and pontificate on everything from the Oakland Raiders coming down to LA to Motown being the best ever. I mean, so I was around this vibe, this atmosphere, my whole upbringing, and he was just another member of the troupe. And so when this came up, it's like I had been doing unconscious study, observation of this guy since I was a kid. So it wasn't that difficult. And then, we were inundated with the OJ trial that whole year.
Right.
So every day I was getting a lesson on the Johnny Cochranisms.
Right. So did you, after the Maestro, were you aware you were coming back for the caddy in that season, or is it just kind of like, all right, thanks guys, and then they kind of called you out of the blue?
Yeah, this is great. See ya. I mean, I didn't know, how could they use an attorney that often? And I suppose that they figured out a way to get him in there because they really did like him. And, in the final episode, we were sitting at the defense table, and Jason was looking back at the gallery, and every one of those people could have had their own show. Everybody in that gallery could have had their own show. And he says to Jerry, he goes, well, who do you think was our best guest star? Who's our best guest star? And Jerry looks at me, he goes, that guy. And so Jason went, no. Phil's been on a few episodes. I'm talking about, who's been the best guest star we've had? He goes, that guy. Talking about me. And so, it was wonderful to get that acknowledgement, wonderful to have them honor me so much and bringing me back so often when I didn't know how they could do it. And then to put me in the last episode was just, I mean, that's respect, man. So.
I mean, you were the star of the last episode. Let's be honest. I mean, you pretty much ran the last episode.
Pretty much, yeah.
It revolved around, it revolved around you. I mean, that's there's no other way around it. Well, we're fans of the last episode too, the finale. I thought we just, obviously rewatched it again before we talked to you, and it's just it still holds up. I think it's one of those, you get the great final line on Jerry, the real and the spectacular. I mean, you can't beat that.
No, it's good stuff. And I know a lot of people had a lot of trouble with it. Very difficult to wrap up 10 years in one episode. I don't care if it's 2 hours or what. So for me, it hit all of the points. These are reprehensible people, and they went to jail at the end of it. And, they got their just desserts, and Jackie got the girl. So great.
Yeah. And I mean, Jackie was just such a great character. And we kind of talked about each episode, the Maestro, the Caddy, Friars Club, Abstinence, and of course, finale. What was your favorite? I mean, I was going through them. It was each one, like, you were excellent at all of them. I kind of lean towards the Caddy a little bit, but the Abstinence is pretty good with the going against the big tobacco firms.
Tobacco company. That might be my favorite. That might be my favorite. I think Jackie was really funny and handsome. The man's a goblin. I mean, it's just great stuff that he came up with. And Jackie could never win. It wouldn't have been funny if he won. He always had to lose. You needed to have that lightning in a bottle client that is a Kramer, right? You can capture lightning in a bottle. This is it, man. My score. I can retire. I can go to Corfu. But no, he can't win. It's just not funny if he wins. So maybe the abstinence, possibly the Maestro, because it was my first go round. It was the first time I did Jackie.
So in the Maestro and the Caddy is season 7. and the Fires Club too, which at the end you had that part. But then season 8's The Abstinence. No Larry David there in The Abstinence. Was there any difference for you on set? I know it sounds like you and Larry kind of had a connection in your first couple of episodes, but was there anything that you could sense differently about your season 8 appearance in The Abstinence without LD there?
Not really. I mean, by that time, that was a well-oiled machine, and they have a great staff. I mean, again, each one of those writers could have run their own show. So they knew what they were doing. They took their marching orders from Larry and Jerry consummately well. So when Larry stepped out, everybody knew how to march, everybody knew what to do. And I didn't sense that there was any sanguine we missed the cat and we're not really saying what we want to say because he's not here. I felt that they were just like, boom, full speed ahead, damn the torpedoes, let's rock this thing.
So you worked closely with Michael Richards, but the episodes you were in, there were a ton of, you mentioned it before, now you turn back and there's a million great guest stars, but in the Maestro, the Caddy, Brenda Strong, the Friars Club, Schneider, a ton of great talent. Did you hang out kind of with all these other people during the tapings? Like,
Absolutely. Armin Shimmerman, I love that cat.
Yeah.
With the same voiceover agent, I did I did a Deep Space Nine with him, actually, where he and I fought each other. It's weird. I have so many great, I know, it's weird. I was playing a Klingon and he's playing Quark. And then we're battling. It was awesome. And then I'm doing freaking Jackie Chiles, it's crazy. But Armin's fantastic. I love Brenda Strong. She's just a beautiful, talented, ballsy woman. Dug her a lot. Jason and I got along. Jason Alexander and I got along. I got along with everybody great. Jason at the time he was studying Jeet Kune Do, JKD. So he's a martial artist a little bit, and so am I. And so he and I talked martial arts quite a bit, and people don't know that about him, but that's kind of part of his vibe. And Larry and I got on great. Jerry and I talk cars all the time. I'm a big petrol head like him, and I actually bought a Porsche with one of his guys, one of his sales guys. And hey, man, I saw his family there. Here's the deal about Seinfeld that I learned: if you brought your A game and you delivered, you were gold. You were gold. I mean, you could do no wrong. They just loved you. If you came in a little, sensitive or trepidatious, or if you weren't as funny, like when Jerry said to me, do what you did in the office. If I couldn't do that, they might not have been as kind to me as they were. I'm just saying. These are tough taskmasters. And the reason why these guys made so much money, made so much noise, was because they were tough taskmasters. And, a lot of actors got their nose bent out of joint because of it, some of them. But ones like me who were pushed and were challenged came up with their best stuff. So.
Very true. Well said. We were talking about the finale before, and you mentioned, when they looked behind and saw they brought so many people back for that. A lot of that, I think, had to do with the loyalty that Larry David shows to some of these guest stars. And I know there's a lot of talk around the finale. How secretive was it? Like, what was your, when they, Larry wrote it and you were obviously, huge part of it. Did they have to kind of vet you or let you know, like, hey, listen, we're doing this thing? I mean, what was the whole lore behind all of that? How that was shot and everything?
Super secretive. Excuse me. I was doing a show called The New Love Boat at the time, and it was a number 99 show in the country. I go from the number 999 show to guest star on the number 1 show in the country. Like, it was mind numbing. So I come back from a long trip with the Love Boat crew. We've been on this ocean to shoot exteriors and so forth. I get home and they're like, you're in the final episode. I'm like, what? Yeah, here's the script. You shoot Monday. I'm like, what? So I read the script. It's intense. Jackie's intense. It scared the hell out of me. I had to give my script back every night. I couldn't take it home. I had to turn it in. My wife brought me to the studio every day. I laid on the back floor so nobody could see it was me who was in it. They couldn't know who was there. There was no NDAs. You cannot tell people you're in this. It's super secretive, and we'll know, obviously. So yeah, it was super secretive. And so I'm doing both jobs at the same time. I mean, I'm working my day job on the Love Boat, finish at 5, hustle to CBS Radford. They're all sitting there waiting for me. I'm there I get in my Jackie suit and I just get out. I get out there and I look back, everybody's waiting. I do my first line. They roll. Everybody starts rolling. I look back at them and I go, I missed y'all too. Let's do this. And so that was my week, was 8 days of double duty, doing Love Boat and then rushing over to do Seinfeld.
Wow.
Intense.
Unbelievable. So I still can't get over Larry David pulling the old switcheroo at the last second and giving you the mustache. Still can't get over that.
Genius. Didn't do it all week with it. Not all week. Nope.
So, I mean, was there anything, I'm always curious about all these episodes, were there any scenes that got cut that you thought were really funny that never made it, or any kind of interactions you had with any other characters over the 5-episode run?
All my stuff was there.
That's it.
All my stuff was in, baby. All the stuff.
Now, can I assume your favorite scene in the finale was with Citra?
That was my first day on the finale. That was the first day. Oh, I got there. I'm in the suits. I'm in the glasses. I'm ready to shoot something else. And Larry goes, "No, we're shooting the bed scene first." Oh, by the way, this is Terry Hatcher. It's like, "Hi, nice to meet you, Terry." And that was my first. That was my first scene. Was naked in bed with Terry Hatcher.
What was your favorite? I don't know if you probably don't. I mean, it's been a long time, obviously, but you were talking about it earlier that, lewd, vivacious, salacious, outrageous, egregious, preposterous. Yeah, shallow. What was your favorite of those?
Of the triplets?
The triplets.
Probably outrageous, egregious, preposterous.
That seems to get a lot of the play on the
a lot of traction. Yeah. And they were real and they were spectacular. That's always a good one, but that's not the three. But and then you people have nicknames for everybody. I love Jackie's lines, man. That stuff is.
Yeah, I mean, in the finale, they all came out. I think.
I have to imagine that was incredible. The finale.
So good.
And what's cool with the finale is you got to work with Lane and Jerry and George versus. I mean, you and Kramer obviously had a great rapport, but I loved kind of your little flirtation with Elaine and. Mm-hmm. Just telling Jerry what to do. Like it was, you just had like a firm hand on the whole situation.
Once again, if you look at the universe, right? If you look at the universe of Seinfeld, right? They all held their places. And then there's Jackie, who is a superstar beyond all of them. Jerry was just a middling comedian as far as Jackie was concerned. Jackie was the man. So whenever Jackie came in, of course he had to hold court. Of course he owned the place. And I think that was refreshing for the audience. I think it was refreshing for the creators to have somebody come in there and take stage and like hold his own with all those crazy people. I remember being with Jerry one time and we're just in between scenes or in a rehearsal or something. I'm like, "So are you having a good time?" And he goes, "Yeah, man." And he looks at Michael and he looks at Julia and he looks at Jason and he goes, "Look what I got around me. I got horses here. I don't have to do anything, Phil. All I got to do is get the lines out, get the words out." So he knew what was going on. And I think that the casting people knew, and they delivered. And they delivered people that could stand in that inferno. And if you couldn't stand in it, you got your feelings hurt.
Right. Yeah, I mean, you definitely you had the presence and the aura, and it's interesting because you really won every case for Kramer, except he botched it every single time. I mean, you're about to get what you were going to get, and then he, of course, botches it every single time. But, like you said, you commanded the scene in every scene you were in. I mean, even that Friars Club, when it's just, it's Kramer's girlfriend calling you up and you just like, that's it. I mean, I'm assuming that was another one of those, they let you know like that week that you had that part. Was it kind of just like, that's it? We got this thing for you to come and shoot it.
We got one line for you to say, "Come on in, we'll pay you for the whole show, but just come in and nail the line." And I came in like, "Cosmo Kramer? I don't want nothing to do with him." I'll never forget it. I might have done it twice. They were like, "Okay, Phil, thanks a lot. See you later. Here's your check."
Residuals too, right?
Yeah, it's good.
So Phil, when they first came to you, whoever your agent or Larry David, and it kind of laid out who Jackie was, like they specifically mentioned Johnny Cochran.
Yeah, it was in the breakdown.
So, and I'm just curious, you knew Johnny. Was he okay with this character?
He was. He had to sign off. They actually have a letter where he signed off his likeness.
Really?
Okay. Yeah. Wow, I didn't know that.
So he had no comeback. I mean, I did the episodes. They were great. I ran into him at the barbershop once. He thought it was great. Then I did a series of Honda commercials directed by the Coen brothers. And then I did a Diet Dr. Pepper campaign. And then I got a letter from his people saying, cease and desist. And I was like, no. So yeah, I mean, they have a letter in Glenn Padnick's office, who was a Castle Rock guy, and it's there with all the other quotes from the executives saying this show was terrible and they're going to cancel it after the Seinfeld Chronicles. But yeah, no, he already signed off, so there's nothing he can do.
Interesting. That's good stuff. I mean, that OJ trial, I mean, they did a few of those episodes even prior, where they did the thing with Genderson and Kramer and the whole truck chase. And then they obviously, I mean, it took over. It was huge at the time.
Yeah.
You know, the caddy episode really brought it all together with it doesn't fit like it doesn't fit like a glove. Sue Ellen Mishke. I mean, the whole thing. It really. It sort of, we talked to a recent guest of ours who wrote a book about the 90s, and Seinfeld and the OJ trial are two of the hugest things about the 90s, and you pretty much bridge those two gaps.
Yeah, we melded them. We melded the two.
You're like, it's iconic. I mean, at this point, you must still be getting recognized as Jackie.
Oh, constantly. I do these things called cameos. I don't know if you know them. They're this, invite your favorite celebrity or athlete or whoever to give a greeting. And 90% of mine are Jackie's. And I do the whole Jackie bit. I put on the mustache and the glasses and the suit and everything. And I do a little, and I can do, personal stuff and intimate. I can't do corporate things and I can't do anything commercialized, but I can directly one-on-one to people and they love it.
Oh, you're not allowed to do, like Jackie at corporate events or make money?
Not unless it goes through Castle Rock.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I don't know. It's great that you embraced it. Like we've talked to a lot of guests where it feels like they got pigeonholed as a certain character in Seinfeld, and it kind of, believe it or not, hurt their career in some ways. But you got the right attitude, man. I mean, Jackie's just a free-loving spirit, and you gotta love him,
Yeah, and I do, and I really appreciate that. We're actors, we're performers, so if there's something like this that gives people a recognition factor, I mean, I embrace it. And, I'm good enough to do other stuff that people remember me for. And I rely on that. And I'm not going to hate on something that brought me so much notoriety, so much joy, and so much fame. It's counterintuitive for me. So I really appreciate Jerry and Larry and Andy Ackerman and Greg Cavett and all the people who wrote on that show and all the producers and even the network executives. I mean, it was a party. The Seinfeld show was a party. And whenever the president of the network, whether it was Warren Littlefield or whoever, Brandon Tartikoff at the time, they would be at the table read. Not an assistant, not a vice, the president of the freaking network would be there. And they would be at the run through. I mean, this was their jewel in the crown and they felt honored to be there. It was a show, man. And they had a live band, which is rare for the studio audience. I mean, this was a brilliant, beautiful experience, and I'll never denigrate it ever.
Amazing. Yeah. I mean, another fandom that you were part of, the Star Trek, Star Trek 3, which they bring up Star Trek in a Seinfeld episode where, Kramer mentions the rat at the com, but I would imagine that fandom is pretty intense too, as well. That Star Trek fan base has got to be up there with Seinfeld as far as dedicated and really, knowing the characters and things like that.
Well, they probably eclipse it. I mean, it's a nerdgasm when it comes to Star Trek. And, they can quote every episode, chapter and verse. And, they're the ones who really started the convention thing. Right. The Star Trek fans. They were that rabid. And they started it much earlier than the Seinfeld crew came around. So I think, I do a lot of Star Trek conventions, or have in the past. I don't do many Seinfeld conventions. You know what I mean?
We'll get one going soon.
Whenever.
Well, yeah, you got crazy Star Trek fans, crazy Seinfeld fans, and then Phil, this Packers fan. After a tough couple weeks, but we know you're a Packers fan.
Yeah, that's a rough one. Yeah, that's rough. But hey, that's sports. That's sports.
How do you become a Packer? How do you become a Packer fan?
Well, my dad was a college friend of a guy named Bob Jeter, number 21. He was in the defensive backfield in the 60s. My dad was a star of Mission Impossible at the time, and they would play the Los Angeles Rams every year as the first game of the season. I mean, that was my Uncle Bobby. He's the first professional athlete I ever knew. And he was a member of the world champion Green Bay Packers. So I met, you name them, Bart Starr, Ray Nitschke, Carroll Dale, Bart, Vince Lombardi, everybody, I met them. And so they become my favorite team forever. Up or down, live or die, flip or fly. I am a fan. So yeah, it hurt deeply. But we go on.
Amen to that. Well, I mean, you just talking about that kind of shows how loyal you are, and you just sound like you sound like an incredibly loyal guy, and obviously you're loyal to your character, Jackie Chiles, who we love, one of our favorites of all time. So we can't thank you enough for joining us tonight, and looking forward to seeing you down the road.
Anytime, guys. I really appreciated this.
And hey, Phil,
love to Seinfeld. Yes.
Phil, before you go, let's do a little. Can you give me a little? Hey, Susie, make sure you listen to this podcast. It's making me thirsty.
Yeah. We recording right now, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, of course we record. Susie, make sure that this podcast making me thirsty is on my list, my Rolodex, my pod dext, if you know what I'm saying. And I need to get to Corfu soon.
Thank you, Phil. This was great.
My
man. I really
pleasure,
appreciate it. This was awesome.
Enjoy, guys. Take
Thank
care.
you
Good
so
luck.
much. Thank
Appreciate
you.
it. Thanks for having me.
Great.